today we're reacting to the Green's video. Okay, let's start the video.
Ants are known for their insane ability to work together to accomplish impossible tasks. So I was wondering what would happen if I put my 1,000 ant colony up against natural disasters. Would they actually be able to stop and survive them by working together?
Well, that's exactly why I gathered up 1,000
Wow,
ants.
that's so
I have the
nice.
5 coolest natural disasters planned, starting
What's
with the
that?
most iconic, an
What
earthquake.
we
Yup,
are.
ants, I went out and bought a realistic earthquake simulating platform that if I go and press this button or whatever on top starts to shake
Wow.
so much, which recreates
destroys
a real
the
earthquake.
Lego.
Oh, dang.
But what I'll actually be putting on here is this 2D ant nest and filling it up with the 1,000 ants, of course. Basically, these ants will dig out tunnels along the glass like my last ant video, but throughout that process, the earthquake machine will lightly go off to gently collapse the tunnels while the ants are digging. That way, I can show you how ants evolve to survive earthquakes in the wild, and if they pass, they move on to the more and more interesting disasters. Now, as you could probably imagine, the ants wasted no time to get to work. Ants are so tiny, and while a single ant would basically be able to make no progress whatsoever, when you have a 1,000 ants, things are done at an insanely rapid pace as workers started picking up grains of sand along the glass so each tunnel could be formed. It's so cool to see time-lapse footage of these tunnels being made because they literally dug out this entire amount of sand in only like 6 hours.
Wow.
So I'm wondering what's going to happen to these tunnels
was
when I turn on
only-
this earthquake machine.
Now, I started by turning it on the least powerful setting.
Okay, it's shaking
Look,
super
look.
slowly. Now, it's my goal to make sure not a single ant is harmed in this video. I just want to show you how insanely smart they are and how they will overcome all these disasters in the wild.
But even this very light shaking was definitely felt amongst the colony. The workers along the top area immediately knew something was off, and they started frantically running around, as you can see. And when we take a look down under the nest where all the tunnels are, you can see those ants were acting similarly. Ants know during earthquakes, their tunnels have the chance to collapse, so all of them were being extremely careful. Very interestingly enough, in this room here, many of the ants were gathering up on the walls of the room to add an extra layer of support so it wouldn't collapse. But of course, when an earthquake happens in the wild, part of the nest is bound to collapse, so it wasn't long until this happened. A bit of the sand here started to fall, completely blocking off this tunnel. I immediately turned off the machine to make sure the ants wouldn't be too stressed out while they had to commence a rescue mission. Because as you can see, while most of the ants were able to squeeze out, like this guy here, at least one ant was partially trapped in this collapsed tunnel. But amazingly, it looked as though one of the ants was already picking up some of the sand from the collapsed portion to clear it out. And yeah, literally so quickly, the ants excavated the entire collapsed tunnel, enough to where it was a perfectly functional area to walk through again. And funnily enough, some of the ants even started to walk in and slowly dig out the area where the sand had just collapsed from to make a new tunnel there.
Wow, the ants just completed this natural disaster. They are so smart. But the natural disasters are designed to get more interesting as the video goes on. So next up, we got a sandstorm. Yes, ants, you heard that right. And this will be taking place in the separate desert enclosure.
Yes, we need to have a separate tank so that way I can make this sand blow around like crazy to replicate a real sandstorm.
And along with this blow dryer, I've also got all these fans that clamp to the walls. And I can just set up to constantly blow the ants back.
For the ants to be able to pass this disaster, they're gonna have to do something like grab onto each other's bodies or something to be able to push past this intense wind. And if they can make it to this canyon, climb up it, and make it to the Terra Green Leaf Bowl, then they're gonna get a ton of seeds, which is their favorite food.
Alright, let me just hook up this tubing like so. And the ants should start coming. Let's go.
Yup, and this tubing is set up so once an ant enters the disaster, they can't get out. That way, we'll progressively get to see more and more teamwork as time goes on. Now, immediately, you can see these first ants just kind of thought this was a normal desert as they were walking through it, but quickly, I brought out my mini sandstorm fan, and I started to blow. Immediately, the ants started to feel the wind pressure pushing them back, and were suddenly not able to walk forward. Some even lost their grip and got pushed back a bit. And as more ants entered the desert, you could tell the sandstorm was keeping them all stuck to the left side of this enclosure.
Yo, this little mini fan is fire for replicating a sandstorm. But no, this is where it gets interesting because now that they know a sandstorm is brewing, how are they going to figure out how to get to these seeds? Well, let's see.
While most ants kept trying to just walk forward and getting blown back, interestingly enough, many of the ants were gathering up in this back area here near the sticks. And many of them were actually starting to climb onto the sticks. You see, the fan doesn't doesn't really blow ants back if they're walking on sticks, since there's just so much of a better grip on there. But yeah, the second they climb off and stand on the sand again, they'll get blown back, as you can see. But the ants were starting to learn that they needed to stay on the sticks. So many started to gather up and march towards the right side where all the seeds were located. In fact, this ant was making it dangerously close to the seeds using the stick method. And well, he was able to make it to the little rock canyon and almost was there to the seeds.
Oh my gosh, this ant climbing right now is a beast. I am blowing this fan max speed on him, and he is just stuck to this rock.
And as I let my guard down for literally 1 second, this dude made a dash for the seeds, literally running straight towards it, and well, he made it in. And he looked so happy to have gotten those seeds. He was just dancing around in there.
Yo, this ant is crazy. I didn't even have time to blow him back when he got up into this area.
Since the ants passed a disaster, I gathered them all up and put them back into the nest. And I gave them the food prize, which of course they started to take down into the nest over the next 5 minutes.
But ants, I'm not gonna lie, this natural disaster was kind of easy to pass. If we really want to learn about how ants survive, well, we gotta go to our third natural disaster, a flood.
Yup, and as you can see, I built another custom tank where the flood is going to be getting simulated. I know there's no water yet, but you'll see how quickly that changes. For now, all you gotta know is if the ants make it all the way to this leaf ball, they'll once again get rewarded with tons more seeds.
These ants have no idea what's about to hit them. Let's connect this tubing so these guys can start walking in.
Quickly, the ants started to make their way in. But before the ants had any time at all to take in their surroundings, I had to activate the flood.
So to make the flood happen, I gotta go down here to this little bucket, plug it in, and then out the end of this tube. Oh yeah, water. Oh shoot, water's coming out. Okay, I just gotta carefully, move that over there. Oh, okay. There we go.
Similar to real life, floods will block off paths for ants while they're trying to travel, so this is exactly what that recreates. And the ants are gonna have to find a way to pass these gaps using the objects I've provided for them. As you can tell, the ants in here immediately were a little confused on what to do. Many were gathering up near the water edge, inspecting what the heck just happened. Some even fell into the water, but don't worry. Any ant that falls in, I'll be rescuing and bringing back to the start so no ants get hurt. But also, many of the ants were actually sort of gathering around the objects I had placed in. And as I left my camera recording, I was extremely amazed by what I saw happen. Out of nowhere, this feather started to slightly move. And as I kept watching, it slowly started nudging around more and more. There must have been an ant underneath, and this ant was genuinely moving the feather closer and closer to the water until literally like magic, it was moved almost entirely in, and an ant crawled out right from underneath as soon as that happened. Dang, this guy must have been helping move it.
Yo, these ants are absolutely insane. I don't know what ant just moved this feather into the water, but dang, I mean, let's just see what they do.
It took a couple minutes, but eventually a couple more of the workers started to step onto the feather and started to walk across it to, of course, make it to our second platform. Now, unfortunately, the ants got to do the same exact thing here. Sorry, guys, I know you already did it once. But to my surprise, the ants literally wasted no time to start gathering around these feathers and directly in the area under them. And while it took a couple hours, eventually my camera caught this same exact thing happening. The feather slowly inched towards the water until, well, it had made a bridge across almost.
Let's go ants. Now, I did help them a little bit by just moving the feather up onto this platform, but for the most part, they actually were moving those.
And yep, it didn't take long till our first worker stepped onto the final platform and climbed up into the leaf dish to claim their seeds.
All right, well done, little ants, and here is your guys' reward. Well, guys, if you want even better food, you're gonna have to complete this next natural disaster, which is a blizzard. And guys, this is gonna be happening in your nest. Be prepared.
Yup, this blizzard will be taking place inside of the ant nest, so we could study how ants handle the cold in the wild.
Now, obviously, I can't just go and dump a ton of snow on them. That would totally just freeze them all. Instead, I've actually got some ice cubes, which I'm gonna go and just plop on this. Which, as you can see, this makes a nice little makeshift snow that on my laser thermometer is approximately -Celsius degrees.
I started by sprinkling a super tiny amount of this ice on the ant nest to see how they'd initially react, and interestingly, well, not even a single ant cared at all. Yeah, this ice just melted completely into the sand. Since the ants weren't affected by that, I decided to up the amount of ice I put in, which should give us a reaction to how ants handle the cold in the wild. And this time, the ants were actually a bit more interested in the ice, with some of them even crawling on top of them. But the most fascinating thing I had noticed was how much the ants had started to slow down their movement since the start.
Thankfully, all the ants are doing just fine still, but if you look very closely, these ants, for the most part, have slowed down so much. I mean, look at how slowly some of them are moving.
Yup, this is one of ants' special abilities. Because in the winter, when it starts to snow and the temperature drops drastically, the ants are basically biologically built to start moving slower. That way, they can conserve as much energy as possible and go hide deeper underground.
So yeah, in the wild, they would dig even deeper and all the ants would relocate to under the nest. I don't want to put any ants at risk, so I'm going to very carefully take out all the pieces of ice so this place will warm back up to the proper temperature.
And once the tank was warmed back up, I'd say the ants are now ready for their final natural disaster, which this time is a zombie apocalypse.
And I'm not gonna lie, this is probably gonna be the most interesting to watch because I've got 3 different types of insects that, in a way, is going to represent a zombie apocalypse.
Now, our first insect prey is, well, zombie grasshoppers. Yes, these are grasshoppers that Petco sells that are literally like half decomposing and meant for feeding animals. And I'll be bringing them back to life and moving it in front of the ants to see what they do.
And to make the ants swarm this even more, I'm gonna dip some of it in this brown sugar water. And yeah, this is gonna make it super tasty. Without further ado, let's get this in here.
Now, immediately after dipping this in the nest, I started to do a really good, accurate job of moving this around to act like it was alive. And I think the ants were falling for it because you can see they quickly started to climb all over it. And if you also look closely, the ants were actually grabbing onto this thing with their insanely strong mandibles, and they were injecting their venomous stingers into it. Which is kind of unnecessary. This thing is already long gone, but I guess I'm just doing such a good job moving it around that they think it's actually a real zombie grasshopper.
Okay, you guys are doing a good job attacking this. I'm just gonna leave that in there for you while I get this second insect ready.
And yeah, they start to absolutely devour this grasshopper. But anyways, our second insect food is this. They're called wax worms, and they're a staple food for ants because of how squishy they are.
But yeah, they just look so weird. So that's why I'm putting them in the zombie apocalypse section of the video. Let's go ahead and add these guys in.
I decided to put this first wax worm on top of where all the ants were still located around that grasshopper. And well, the ants almost instantly recognized the prey, and amazingly, they knew exactly what to do. And they took this dude straight down into the tunnel system where it wouldn't even stand a chance to fight back.
Oh my gosh, that was like 3 seconds. And now this worm is literally nowhere to be seen. It's probably in the tunnel system. Dang, that's actually kind of impressive, ants.
So I dropped the other 2 wax worms inside, and once again, one of them instantly got pulled down into the tunnel system to get eaten, and this one started to get swarmed. After the ants had a good grasp of it, they literally brought it over to these hills in the back, which eventually the worm was then brought down one of the holes on that hill. It's so cool, because if you guys didn't even realize, the ants have turned these hills at the back into an extra place for more tunnels on the back, and we can literally see the worm down under these tunnels as the ants get their protein from eating it.
Wow, amazing job, ants. But our final zombie apocalypse